word's hot rod may strike fear in the hearts of many Main Street shoppers, but an estimated 200 to 400 local car enthusiasts are working hard to improve that image. Spending between $7,000 and $15,000, plus up to 5 years of their lives, restoring or customizing classic cars, at least one Longmont group stresses safe family fun in its hot rod activities. The 30 members of Longmont's Coloradan Car Club also log over 100,000 safe miles annually in their spectacular street rods and street machines.
A street rod today is basically the hot rod of yesterday. We've tried to live down that image and tried to show people that the hot rod that they used to be so afraid of in the 1950s isn't that way today. A street rod is basically a pre-1948 automobile that has been modernized for today's standards. The average car that you see sitting on display here have later model engines, transmissions, and differentials. The majority of them will run things like tilt steering, air conditioning, cruise control, AM, FM, CB, and just about anything that you desire. The street machine is the 1948 and newer.
The car is all new underneath with a late model engine and automatic transmission. It's got all new suspension, new frame, and just late model running gear. Otherwise it looks 29 on the outside. It's a driver, yeah, it's a driver. We ride them all over. This one's just been finished, so it doesn't have many miles on it yet, but I intend to drive it a lot. It's what's known as a driver in this world.
It's a 1963 Chevrolet Impala Super Sport. It's basically a factory car that you could order in 1963. It's a 409 with 425 horsepower. Came with a 4-speed. The reason I really like this car is basically very first car I owned was a 63 Chevy Impala. It wasn't a Super Sport and it wasn't a 4-speed, but it brings back old memories of the very first car I owned, and it's a little bit different, but it's close enough to where a little bit of nostalgia and all this kind of stuff.
Whether nostalgic for 1963 or 29, these Coloradans share similar goals. What's the purpose of your club here?
We began back in 1968 as a group of auto enthusiasts, people of all occupations and all walks of life, that just have one common bondage, the love of the automobile, whether it be an old car or a new car, and the hobby of doing something with your own hands that you can enjoy when it's done. The part of the fun is just taking what you and your family have built and enjoying it by driving to these events. And when you get here, what is offered is just extra. And they do. There's something that like this goes on across the United States every weekend in some city or another.
Well, what I enjoy most, it was a lot of fun building for several years, but I've sure enjoyed driving it since it's been finished. Okay, I've chopped the top, which means I've lowered the height of the roof by 2.5 inches and filled the roof. Originally they had a canvas top insert in them, and that's been filled with a metal roof and a sunroof. Paint is just a late model Thunderbird maroon. Get a lot of attention going down the roads and through small towns. It's really interesting. Every gas station you stop at, somebody's had one just like it when they were a kid.
The same coupes and roadsters that once scattered the chickens and horrified the horses are again turning onlookers' heads, but now for the obvious hours of care and attention they've received, not for their speed. In fact, safety is primary for the owners of these hot rods. These cars are regularly checked for safety against National Street Rod Association standards. And last year, the club purchased driver education films for the St. Vrain Valley schools with proceeds from its annual rod run.
There is no racing at all. They are strictly street legal cars.
Get your car over there and get an NSRA safety inspection sticker on it.
On the corner of 5th and Main Street In a large upstairs room, the spirit of Jack Dempsey lives on at the Longmont Boxing Club. While the club has been operating out of its present location only since January, it has been in operation in Longmont for over 6 years. The Longmont JCs were responsible for opening the club to provide free boxing training to the public. Due to their many financial commitments, however, the JCs were unable to maintain the financial support required by the club. The club has therefore been dependent on the financial contributions of the public. Although the situation has created some hard times, the club has managed to produce some noteworthy boxing talent. Last year, the club won the Colorado State Boxing Championships. And this August, one of its boxers was sent to compete in the Nationals at the Olympic Training Grounds in Colorado Springs.
The Longmont JCs is the one that started it out. And the purpose of this is to keep everybody, most of these kids off the street, and if they want to fight, we want them to do it in the ring, and keep them out of the street fights and stuff like this, and keep them hanging out on the streets late at night. That's our mainest goal, is to do that.
My original reasons was that I love boxing, for one thing. It's next to football, I think it's my favorite sport, and I love to work with kids. You know, that's one of my goals in life. I'm working with kids right now at the Attention Home, and that's just what I like to do. I like to help kids steer them in a good path, you know, through this road of life, you know, and boxing's just an avenue that I'm using, you know, to help some of these kids out, and I enjoy it. It's a good sport. They can learn discipline and a lot of other good things, you know, through boxing. Confidence, they can build confidence in themselves, and it's good competition, good one-on-one competition.
I get the glory out of watching these kids come in off the street and then not being out at night, and I know they're up here trying to achieve something, and the ones that are coming up right now, they're impressing me.
As with any sport, the athletes of the boxing club have hopes, dreams, and ambitions that fuel their pursuit of excellence.
The most of them that really, really works hard, their goal is to go to the state, go to the regionals, and try to go to the nationals. And if you make the regionals, why, you get to go to the nationals. And I've got 5 that just tell me, Wiz, we're going. We're going to be in shape, and we're going. And that really makes me feel good that they're working that hard.
I'm hoping to achieve to win state, national, international, the Golden Gloves, and hopefully a chance at the Olympics if I can. You know, before it's too late. If not, I'm thinking about turning pro for at least 2 years after this year, because this year's going to be my year, max year.
He's 6'2", and he's around 154, and he's had 12 fights and won 9. And right now he's a good prospect. And then we have Prince Holly. He's had 4 fights, and he's won them all. He's going to be a good fighter.
What can you tell me what you hope to achieve as a boxer here in this club?
Hope to get me a young man about 10 or 8 years old and train him and teach him everything I know, and hopefully that he can be a champion. You know, that's what I'm looking forward to.
I'm going to box this year myself, you know, as a heavyweight, mainly to inspire some of the younger guys here, you know, show them that an old man can still get in there, you know.
My hope is that they'll all come up and work out real hard and achieve what they want to, and bring their friends that's out going to parties and things, and let them know that they're welcome up here, and anybody that wants to come up here, they're welcome to come up and work out. We'd love to have them. We'll help them any way we can.
The Longmont Boxing Club thus provides an outlet for those who wish to achieve concrete goals in the sport. Be it boxers whose dream is to compete in the Olympics, those merely wanting to get in shape, or to the trainers whose dream is to take young talent and turn it into successful athletes. Recently, Energy Oil Incorporated contributed money to the club, enabling the purchase of much-needed equipment and supplies. It is this type of financial support that the club needs to assure its future survival. This is Darcy Bonfils for Longmont Cable News.
Like most of its citizens, the city of Longmont has its own attorney. That legal counsel is Ralph Josephson.
The city council is an elected body. I am appointed and serve at the will and pleasure of the city council. That means that when they have ordinances, when they have legal questions, anything and everything that involves the legal position of the city, I act as their lawyer and their advisor.
What are exactly the duties as city attorney?
The city attorney really has a very broad range of activities. I draft the ordinances for the city, the resolutions. I render legal opinions to the city council. I draft various contracts that are required. In other words, the city is a public body. It is a public body politic, but it's very similar in a way to any private corporation. We indulge in contracts with other entities. We engage in litigation where I may take it either as a plaintiff or representing the city as a defendant. It's really very broad in nature. It has involved a case, for instance, in Greeley where we were contesting fees that Weld County was imposing on us as the solid landfill operator and owner over there. It's been involving employee suits, anything and everything.
What did you do before you became city attorney?
Oh, I have been a prosecutor at the state level, deputy district attorney in Boulder County, and before then I was an assistant state's attorney in Illinois, and I've also had my private law practice here.
In Longmont?
Oh, yes.
Why did you choose to become a lawyer in the first place?
I was interested in political science and governmental processes, and got my degree from the University of Colorado and sort of evolved into law school.
What appeals to you most about the law?
Oh, I think that the law is an instrument that regulates the conduct of society, hopefully to achieve fairness and just results. The law is certainly expanding most quickly in this area when it deals with human rights and the integrity of our environment and the integrity and honesty of the processes of private and public affairs, so that the law provides probably the most valuable tool in achieving this result.
How do you spend your day after work?
Right now I'm somewhat disabled because of leg fractures, and so I've had to restrict that activity which normally I indulge in, which was much more recreationally oriented in terms of walking and running and so on. So I've had to adopt a little more sedentary interests. I do a lot of reading. I enjoy classical music a great deal, things like that. Now, my wife is Evelyn, and Evelyn is the attendant to our rather substantial home with the 5 kids, and we also have a beautiful dog named Brutus, a bull terrier, and she also in her spare time works as a title examiner. We enjoy going out to eat, and we of course engage in activities at home involving the wonderful new cable television service that is available. And I like to eat good food, so I style myself somewhat, if not a lot, as a gourmet. And again, we try to do things together as a family. I'm more of a homebody. I like to stay at home and do things with the family. I think I've pretty much described to you the surface Ralph. Okay. And again, I enjoy people. I enjoy discussing things with people, their company, and their friendship.
City attorney for the past 5 years, Josephson is pleased with the directions that Longmont is taking.
I think we're really doing very well right now. In other words, I cannot sit here and say I've got a potion or a formula that is going to remove the city from one level to a much higher and better level, because I like the place. It's a good town to live in. And I think that we have good and responsible people who are here now serving the community. I would rather see an extension of the philosophies and the practices that we have, and that is to provide the community with the type of environment, with the type of lifestyle through what we can do as a municipal organization that makes us a better place to live.
This is Pat Brewington for Channel 3. City Manager Al Sweeney has high hopes for Longmont, most of which center on local employment for the 52% of city workers who now must commute.
Longmont has almost become a bedroom community, and we realize this and have realized it for some time. And at the present time, and I'm sure you're aware, we're making an effort to bring in industry and retail tax base to satisfy our revenues that'll help provide the services for the residential that we have. So I guess I'd like to see us be able to balance that overall economy here in Longmont. The city's role in this is that we work with that new industry to ensure that they have a feeling of being welcomed in the community. But that is something that I'd like to see happen during my time as city manager, is to bring it more into balance and put Longmont in a situation that our revenues are adequate to provide services for the community.
What do you do after you've finished a day's work here as city manager?
Answer the phone from citizens that call with complaints. No, not exactly, but that is a part of it. Your day is not over at 5 o'clock when you're in municipal government. I'm sure in any type of government job. And there's activities that go on during the week after hours that have to do with the city. Council meetings, other meetings that I have to attend, but the rest of the time I spend home with my family doing what you do at home.
Yeah. Longmont's budget officer and finance director for 18 years before replacing Roy Howard as city manager in 1982, Al Sweeney still finds his South Carolina heritage helpful.
Now, there's times when I'll take advantage of my accent and use it when necessary. And I've had to before in the past in dealing with some federal offices that may be located in Texas. I've used it to an advantage. If you can talk their language, it helps. And the people in Texas, sometimes they feel more comfortable talking to someone using an accent similar to theirs than they may a Yankee.
Can you tell us about some of your hobbies?
Yard work and golf when I have an opportunity and have the time. And I guess you might say that my fish here has become a hobby. And that was after my daughter gave me the aquarium for Christmas, and I find it to be very relaxing to watch the fish. And I talk to them. They don't ask any questions. They never complain about anything, so I do enjoy them.
Although he relishes occasional breaks from answering questions, Sweeney's main interest is in dealing with people.
I think the thing that I really feel that helped me to get to where I'm at today is the fact that I like people and I can work with people. And I think that's the key to being a success in anything, but especially in municipal government or being a city manager. That's something that I think has changed or improved since I have become city manager, as I've made an effort to surround myself with very good people that have a feeling of working with people and working for this community.
This is Pat Brewington for Channel 3.
John Caldwell has been a part of Longmont since he was 13, maintaining involvement in the community through various citizen groups. It was not until 2 years ago, though, that he sought to be a part of City Council.
guess everyone has their frustrations with the government bureaucracy or whatever, and that if you think you can do something about it, then the most effective way is to get in there and pitch. And as far as the council's concerned, I think that we've got a very, while everybody on the council has a little different point of view, I think everyone on the council is working for the good of the city and has the good of the city at heart. But I also think that we're all very amicable. I think we get along well together and work well together, and so consequently, I think things function well together. This area is going to continue to grow. I don't think there's any question about it. And dealing with that growth in a responsible manner is going to continue to be I think the biggest responsibility of the council. We've got some pretty big, financially, some pretty big nuts to crack, and that's the capital improvements program of some $50 or $60 million, and we've got some Windy Gap water payments that we're looking at. We're looking at different alternate methods of paying for those. I'm continually impressed by the calls that I get from people that are expressing ideas and constructive solutions to problems that the city has.
Caldwell's dedication as a council member shows through in his personality.
I don't know, I guess I think of myself, as, I like to have a good time like anybody else. I guess I see myself as a, somewhat serious person. I think that I like to get to the heart of an issue and try to take the most direct and efficient approach to a solution. And I studied engineering in school, even though I don't really apply much direct engineering applications. I think that it's sort of a mode of thinking or problem solving, and I guess that's how I approach a lot of things.
This is Darcy Bonfils for Longmont Cable News.
The favorite what? Favorite characteristic?
achievements has your position as state minority leader allowed you to achieve for the citizens of Longmont?
The legislature and being sure that they work to pass the best kind of legislation for the people of Colorado. In this specific instance, I think it also has given me an ability to work closer with Governor Lamb and try to put that together before you go try to find the Republicans who will make the difference between the bill losing and the bill passing. I think
Longmont is represented in the state Senate by Ron Stewart, a Democrat serving his second term and minority leader for that body. While his responsibilities as minority leader require a lot of time and effort, Stewart is nevertheless able to serve in the Senate Finance Committee and the Governor's Commission on Education as well, allowing him to pursue interest in taxing in the school system. Stewart is one of those rare individuals who was born and raised in Longmont, giving him a deep-rooted perspective on the city. Channel 3 recently came here to the state capitol to talk with Longmont's state senator. What do you see to be the major concerns of the citizens of Longmont that can be addressed by the state legislature?
Well, I think most of the issues that people in Longmont would feel strongly about are issues which state government is involved in. People in Longmont obviously feel strongly about a good school system, about whether or not we have 40 kids in a classroom or 25 kids in a classroom. And that's an issue that state government every year is involved in through our finance of the public schools. I think people in Longmont are concerned about the quality of life, whether or not we're able to see our mountains on every day of the year. What kind of steps are taken to preserve adequate recreational facilities across the state for Colorado's people. And those are issues which the legislature deals with by passing the emission inspection program, which we now have to try to reduce the level of air pollution in Denver, or through the State Parks and Outdoor Recreation Department in terms of providing recreational opportunities. I think Longmonters are concerned about crime issues, about what we're doing on drunken driving, what we're doing on child abuse, what we're doing in a number of areas where there's been a lot of attention because of local events on particular areas of Colorado law that need resolving.
What do you feel the image of Longmont to be at the state capitol?
I think now there's a real recognition that Longmont is very much a growing community, that there's a lot of high-tech involvement in the Longmont area, but I think there's still a feeling that Longmont is a separate community, a community on its own, that it's an urban center in itself, not just part of the sprawl that we have in Denver, where where you go from one city to another city without really any distinction between them.
I'm also interested in finding out from you what you perceive to be the major concerns that will be affecting the future of Longmont.
I think Longmont, because it is in one of the most pleasant environments to live in probably the United States, is in a position of having to deal with how do we grow as a city and not destroy all of the amenities that brought people to Colorado in the first place. I think that how Longmont deals with growth, how we provide for the continued high quality of life in the city are some of the most important things that we're going to have to deal with as a city.
While happenings at the state capitol may appear removed from the daily lives of Longmont residents, we can be assured that Senator Ron Stewart is there, looking out for us. This is Darcy Bonfils for Longmont Cable News.
The business of state government may often seem far removed from our local activities and needs, but Candace Dyer, the Democratic state representative from our district, is here daily at the Capitol representing the interests of the citizens of Longmont. How do you keep abreast of the needs and the wishes of your Longmont constituency?
I find that many times people will call me because, especially after a second term, they know who I am, and I try and make myself readily available. I've also in the past sent out questionnaires asking people what their opinions were. I've written columns and state that, you know, anytime you have an opinion or you have something you'd like me to know or something you'd like me to do, please give me a call.
In a recent Denver Post article, Longmont was referred to as having a cow town image. What is the image of Longmont in the state legislature?
I think that the image is of a small town that is beginning to grow. And I feel like many people realize that within Longmont. And I guess I don't see anything wrong with that as long as the growth grows in the right direction, as long as we know where it's going. But I think overall, I think Longmont is seen as a town that is beginning to grow. I myself moved to Longmont because I felt like it would be a fantastic place to raise my children. I think it is. And I think as long as there's involvement and people want to go in the right direction, it will.
Okay. So you feel Longmont is taken seriously in the state legislature and
Oh,
not
yes.
just viewed as the hinterlands outside of Denver?
Well, there are times when I do get those remarks, and I'm very, very quick to straighten them out. And in fact, I'm very straight. I am a Boulder legislator in that I'm in Boulder County, but I represent Longmont. And I am many times introduced as Candy Dyer from Boulder. And I say, well, I'm from Boulder County, but I represent the city of Longmont. And so I do all I can, and I think it's because it still is a smaller town, and of course it is smaller, and Boulder County does get more recognition, but I think even the city itself and the people, every time they get a chance, should bring it to light that you are from Longmont, and it's a nice place to live.
Growth has become a major issue for Longmont. By one recent study, there have been 2,000 new jobs this year in Longmont, and a proposed 6,000 to 8,000 new ones probably next year. Mm-hmm. Also, the Clover Basin neighborhoods are expected to add about 30,000 people to the population of Longmont by 2000. What do you think are the major effects that this amount of growth is going to have on the character of Longmont?
We hopefully will be getting some more industry into Longmont, and I think that is important, good, clean industry, to broaden our tax base, which is very much needed because we have to keep our schools up so they're good quality, and sometimes it's a circle. Industry wants to come to Longmont if the schools are good, and the schools want industry because it's going to help pay for the schools, this type of thing. So I think as long as we do a good job and we decide what we want in our community and go with that, I think it could be and remain a very good community to live in.
As a member of the Committee on Health, Environment, Welfare, and Institutions, as well as a registered nurse, you are very well acquainted with the healthcare facilities and healthcare issues. Can you explain why healthcare costs have skyrocketed in recent years?
Health care right now is the second largest industry in the United States, which I think is very, very interesting. Also, on a cost basis, there's only one other product, if you want to put it in those terms, product terms, that's more expensive than health care, and that's energy. Basically, I feel like there are three very important reasons, and then from the three reasons you can go out into a bunch of other reasons. But I think one is third-party payers, which means that you go through an insurance company. So many people who are paying their health care costs do not realize what they're paying for. The second point is that the consumer is a passive participant. If you go to the store, you can compare different prices on loaves of bread and different types. You walk into a hospital, and they're going to tell you just what you need, and you don't get to choose whether you want it. You don't know whether you need it. And number three is that I feel like the malpractice insurance for physicians is extremely high, and so I do think there should be either a cap or there's some way we should go about keeping down malpractice insurance for the physicians.
Thank you, Ms. Dyer, for being with us to help launch the inaugural week for Longmont Cable News.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Longmont's municipal judge for the past 7 years has been local attorney Rick Lucero. Originally appointed to this part-time position by City Council in 1976, Lucero will come before Longmont voters on the November 8th election for a decision on his retention as city judge.
The City of Longmont passed an amendment to the city charter. I don't remember the year right now, it seems like 1979, that the city voters passed a charter amendment where the judge was no longer subject to serving at the discretion of the city council. He now serves at the discretion of the voters, and the voters vote every 2 years on whether or not the judge shall be retained. Currently, the job is a part-time job, and it's been a part-time job ever since I took it. So I practice privately in addition to working as the city judge. However, over the years, the hours have increased fairly substantially, where now the court sits, myself and Associate Judge Cross sit a substantial amount of the time, virtually every day of the week except Monday.
A variety of cases come before Longmont's municipal judges each week.
We handle traffic cases and minor misdemeanor cases, disturbing the peace, resisting arrests, disorderly conducts, minor assaults, shoplifts, and people who come into the court, see the judge, hear their rights as defendants, and decide to plead guilty or not guilty. It's my function to advise them of those rights and then process their case. If they plead guilty, impose a fine or a penalty. If they plead not guilty, set it on the court calendar for a trial.
What appeals to you most, being the arbiter as judge for both sides of a case, or being the advocate as a private attorney for one side or the other?
I've now done this for about 7.5 years, and I've come to the point where I really like it that way, where I'm able to do both. I'm able to mix my experience with being a judge and getting to decide and resolve things, and I'm able to mix it with being an advocate for people in different types of cases, where my function is to assist that individual person as opposed to try to sort it out. And I really enjoy both experiences.
What do you consider your major accomplishments during your term as municipal judge?
The greatest achievement that I can accomplish is to be fair to everybody, because a court's main function is to be neutral and to provide a forum where both sides can tell their story and have reasonable confidence and reasonable assurance that the judge will listen to it. Some people come into court with an impression that, well, I don't have a chance, and you can't fight City Hall, and the police always win, and the judge always believes the police. The main thing I've been able to do is give people a chance, give people a feeling that they really do have a chance. They can't tell somebody who'll be impartial.
This is Pat Brewington, Longmont Cable News, Channel 3.
The only problem with the recent council decision to give the Longmont Humane Society funds for a new shelter is that the society must contribute half the funds themselves. To help raise this money, the society has asked the New Colorado Ballet Company of Denver to travel to Longmont and perform their annual Christmas production, the Nutcracker Suite.
In addition to the company's principal dancers, the ballet will feature some of Longmont's own young dancing talent. The company was in town last weekend to audition these dancers for parts in the production. Longmont Cable News traveled to the scene and talked with some of the organizers of the event.
Well, I felt that the Humane Society needed something that was not involved with animals, and it would be a wonderful experience for them to work with a professional ballet troupe, and also it's good for ticket sales. It's just nice to be able to have local children into something like this.
What are your reasons for getting local talent from Longmont to act in the performance?
We would like to offer some of those opportunities to the outlying districts. If there is the interest and the talent, that people might come into Denver, and on some kind of a basis we might be able to help educate and offer them the opportunity where talent lies, and I have seen some here today that might possibly go have a future in the dance world. If it was very difficult here today to have to say to some of these young people who are not untalented that I just can't use you this year because we have to put restrictions on how many people we can use in the production, just from sheer limits of time to put it together and the amount of time we have to bring people from Longmont to Denver and coordinate the whole production and still make it look professional.
What are your expectations for the girls that you chose here today?
My expectations are that they will be very pretty and they will be very lively on stage, and they will add to the aura of our production just the spontaneity of having a different group and work. But this gives them a little idea of something right here in Colorado. What is here in Colorado? What do I have to look forward to as a dancer in Colorado?
What are your expectations in terms of how much money you'd like to raise from the production?
Our goal is to raise $9,000. This is between ticket sales, and also we will be having sponsors and patrons. It's very important for us to get the sponsorship for this because it is such a high cost production to put on.
What other ways are you going to be raising money for the Humane Society?
They are having a fundraising event starting now where they are going through the different medias asking people for funding. They have not set up a special program as of yet. We have sent out grants and things like that. They are looking for $250,000 by the end of June. So it's very essential to get a program going. This is kind of their kickoff for their fundraising events.
The Nutcracker Suite will be performed at the Vance Brand Auditorium at Skyline High on December 17th. For more information, contact Robin Wiley at 772-1466. This is Darcy Bonfils for Longmont Cable News. coming to Gene's Texas Hamburgers?
Oh, about 15 years.
And what is it that keeps bringing you back?
Just the good hamburgers, and that I like the way you fix them right out there in front where you can see them.
What changes have you noticed over the years at Gene's?
I haven't seen any changes over the years.
Can you tell me a little bit about the history of Gene's, the role it's played in Longmont?
Well, Gene and Georgia came from Lubbock, Texas, and opened up this place in 1949. They worked here for 30 years, and then they retired in 1979. And people who used to go to high school here came in to eat, and people whose sons went to high school here came in to eat, so people have been coming here a long time. Well, it's been a landmark. It's been here for 34 years. People know it in the area. People from other state know about it. I'm surprised how many people throughout the country have been to Gene's if they've been to Longmont. So it's a real a shrine to the area, I guess. I guess when there was a high school across the street, this was the place where the high schoolers met and socialized. A lot of the old timers come in and sit around and have coffee and then talk about old times. I know when Gene was here, he was an avid fisherman, and he used to have his fishing buddies in here. Just a place to come that's been here a long time. I think it's still an atmosphere of the 40s and the 50s. I even found a radio program that plays 40s and 50s music, and it's kind of fun to listen to.
Can you tell me how long you've been coming to Gene's?
Well, I used to go to junior high right across the street here, and my mom used to come over once in a while. We used to come over here and eat lunch, too.
How long have you been coming to Gene's?
Quite a long time.
What changes have you noticed here over the years?
It's the same to me since it was when I've been coming before.
How long have you been coming to Gene's?
I don't know.
What makes a place so special?
I like to think it's a good food.
Can you tell me a little bit about the food?
Well, most of it's cooked here. We make our own chili, we make our own soups, we make our own pies, pecan pies, make our own sauces, salad dressings, stuff like that.
Can you tell me what makes a hamburger a Texan hamburger?
I don't know. I really don't. They're a little bit bigger. Of course, the meat is always fresh, and that's what makes it taste so good.
What makes these pies so special?
Well, everything is made here. We make our own crust, we make our own fillings. Nothing is store-bought. It's just all homemade, and you can taste the difference. As far as I know, the recipes did come from Texas with Georgia.
What percentage of your customers come in to get pies versus your other hamburgers?
I think a lot of people come in with the idea that they're going to have pie for dessert. I would say half of them come in knowing that they're going to have pie after they've eaten.
And how many come back for the pies?
Almost all.
Do you think Gene's is an institution in Longmont?
I believe so, yes.
So what do you think about Gene's Texas Hamburger as being an institution in Longmont?
Well, it's been here long enough. It ought to be an institution.
I think that there'll always be a place for a restaurant of this nature and the quality of food that we have. The people coming from other town, the people living down will always be looking for some small, homey place to come have their lunch or their dinner. And I think Gene's will always be here.
Gene's Texas Hamburgers is a holdout of the 1950s. It's one of those rare places where you still can get an authentic home-cooked meal in an atmosphere reminiscent of the old-time soda shop. Whether it's nostalgia you're looking for or true Texan cuisine, Gene's has it. This is Darcy Bonfils from Longmont Cable News. Rocky Flats Nuclear Weapons Plant, the site of plutonium trigger production for all nuclear weapons made in the United States, was also the site this weekend of an encirclement where thousands gathered to demonstrate against nuclear weapons production. Longmont Cable News visited the encirclement and spoke with representatives from Longmont. What is the involvement of the Longmont Network in the demonstration today?
Well, the involvement here is that we want to voice our own protest in union with the people of Denver and all the surrounding areas of our outrage on the buildup of nuclear weapons. I think first thing we hope to accomplish is awareness. We want people in Washington to be aware of the difficulty and our feelings in regards to the buildup, especially in this region. And I think the second thing we'd like to accomplish is to show support and solidarity with peoples of all nations, is that we're very, very concerned about the future. I think the real significance is that the significance that always happens when large amounts of people get together is that it's by our initiative that things will get done. It's by grassroots organization, it's by the grassroots involvement of the people, of the citizens, of registered voters who can go out and really make some systematic change.
I would hope that the politicians get the message that all of us people do not want nuclear weapons, and they should have gotten that through the freeze, but if they haven't, we hope that they'll see this as joining hands with the people in Europe, in England, and all over the globe who do not want any more nuclear weapons. I think the message is clear, and we're just joining brothers and sisters throughout the world on this. There's a lot to do in Colorado. We have not only Rocky Flats, but 40 ICBM missile sites in northeastern Colorado. We have NORAD down at Cheyenne Mountain, and we now have the Space Command facility just outside of Colorado Springs, which is the equivalent of NASA, they tell us, to monitor and work with the militarization of space, which of course we do not want to see. We've already militarized the planet enough, and we don't want them to get out into space now.
What do you think the significance of today's event is?
Well, I like to think that the fact that it isn't restricted to just one segment of the population. We have families here, young families, middle-aged people, older people. I think everybody's concerned about this issue, and I wish the government would be.
One thing I think is important is that a lot of people in Europe are going to be doing similar things, and just to show that there's people in the United States that are also interested in peace.
Can you sum up for me the anti-nuclear sentiment in Longmont?
Well, I can only do it visually, and that's why I constructed a banner. Usually, I have a feeling which I cannot articulate, but I think, of course, that we all would like to see this threat disappear, and we'll try to do what we can to do it. And I found that my medium was art.
While members of the Longmont Network joined hands with thousands of gatherers, we spoke with other representatives participating in the event.
This is designed to send a clear message to Washington, which President Reagan has not been listening, to say we want a freeze. We do not want more missiles in Europe. We do not want a build-down type of nuclear situation. What we want is a freeze. And 80% of the United States population has been in favor of this, and it's time to start listening.
What is the attitude of Rocky Flats about demonstrations of this type?
Well, they get in the way of some of our normal activity because we have a mission to accomplish at the plant, and that's to produce our product, and we don't really have a lot of time to mess with this, and it actually is at a great cost to the taxpayer, depending on what kind of activity that we encounter during the course of a demonstration.
What do you think the impact of this particular demonstration will be?
It's always hard to quantify it, but it will certainly send a message to the Congress that people still care very, very much about what's going on and really do worry that our future is in jeopardy if we don't start to get a grasp on this whole weapons buildup.
This is Darcy Bonfils for Longmont Cable News.
Do you own stock in American Telephone and Telegraph, or AT&T? This has been a favorite investment for literally generations of Americans who wanted to own a piece of the huge telephone utility and experience the high dividends that they pay. But on January 1st, AT&T will become 8 companies by court order. There will still be a company named AT&T, but it will be an electronics firm, a supplier of advanced telecommunications technology, of telephone equipment, and of long-distance telephone service. The new AT&T will have Bell Labs and Western Electric in their company. Your local phone service will be provided by one of 7 regional holding companies depending on where you live. For Longmont and most of the Rocky Mountain region, our company will be U.S. West Incorporated. And as a stockholder, if you own 100 shares of the old AT&T, you would have an asset worth approximately $6,100 right now that pays annual dividends of $540. Under the terms of the breakup, you keep that old stock and you will receive 10 shares of each of the 7 regional holding companies. Based on Tuesday's closing stock prices, the value of your holdings is slightly greater under the new broken up system, and your annual dividend is slightly higher. But your new higher annual dividend will be sent to you in the form of 32 checks. That's the quarterly dividend on 8 different companies rather than the 4 checks that you received under the old system. If you have at least 10 shares but less than 500 shares of AT&T, and you would rather not have that many checks to deal with, you can consolidate your holdings of the regional companies into just one or more of the companies. AT&T provides that option at a transfer cost of just 25 cents per share. There are different options available to you depending on the number of shares you own. And there are different procedures that you would need to follow depending on whether you are holding your certificates or whether they're being held at a brokerage house. The new deployment of your assets that will happen whether or not you want it to may or may not meet your financial objectives. So do yourself a favor and find out from a professional what all this will mean for you. You can write to me, Claudia French, in care of Longmont Cable News, 1200 South Sunset in Longmont.